There are missions that don't exist on paper. Operations so classified that even the soldiers who execute them can't officially acknowledge they happened. I'm Master Sergeant Jake Reaper Matthews, Delta Force, 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta. I've operated in 17 countries across 4 continents, most of them under cover of absolute secrecy. But what happened in Venezuela in August 2019, what we found in that compound deep in the jungle, that's something the world needs to know about. Even if it means burning my career. Even if it means I can never set foot in the United States again. It started with a catastrophic intelligence failure. Colonel David Harrison, U.S. Army Special Forces, was operating undercover in Venezuela as part of a CIA intelligence gathering operation. His cover was solid, international aid worker with a European NGO. He'd been in country for 8 months, building networks, gathering intelligence on Venezuelan military capabilities and potential Russian involvement in the region. Then on August 14, 2019, he missed his scheduled check-in. 24 hours later, Venezuelan state television broadcast footage of his arrest. They'd burned him, identified him as a U.S. military officer, accused him of espionage and orchestrating a coup attempt against the Maduro regime. The footage was bad, really bad. Harrison looked rough, face bruised, clearly beaten during interrogation. He was being paraded in front of cameras, forced to read a prepared statement confessing to crimes he'd never committed. The Venezuelan government was using him as a propaganda tool, proof of American interference, and they were threatening to execute him as a spy within 72 hours. That's when we got the call. Delta Force doesn't officially conduct operations on foreign soil without host nation approval. Officially. But when an American officer is held hostage by a hostile regime, when diplomatic channels fail, when time is running out, rules become flexible. Very flexible. The mission brief came down from JSOC, Joint Special Operations Command, at 0300 hours on August 16th. My team, call sign Raven, consisted of 6 operators. Myself as team leader. Captain Sarah Chen, our intelligence specialist and the sharpest tactical mind I'd ever worked with. Sergeant First Class Marcus Bull Rodriguez, breacher and heavy weapons expert. Staff Sergeant Tyler Webb, communications and tech specialist. And 2 assaulters, Sergeants James Porter and David Kim. All of us had multiple combat deployments. All of us had conducted hostage rescue operations before. None of us had operated in Venezuela. The intelligence package was thin. Harrison was being held at a facility approximately 180 kilometers southwest of Caracas, deep in Venezuelan jungle. The compound was officially listed as a Venezuelan military research station, but satellite imagery showed heavy fortification, multiple guard towers, and a security perimeter way beyond what a research facility would need. Our CIA contact suggested it might be something else, a black site interrogation facility, possibly with Russian or Cuban advisors present. Our mission parameters were clear: infiltrate Venezuelan airspace undetected, halo jump into jungle 20 clicks from target, overland movement to compound, breach and extract Harrison, exfiltrate to emergency extraction point on the Colombian border. Time limit: 36 hours from insertion to extraction. After that, Venezuelan military would likely relocate Harrison or execute him, and our window would close permanently. We inserted from a MC-130J flying dark at 25,000 feet, well above Venezuelan radar coverage. The halo jump was smooth, high altitude, low opening, deploying our chutes at 3,000 feet. We landed in a small clearing just after midnight local time. The jungle immediately swallowed us. Venezuelan rainforest is brutal. Dense canopy, oppressive humidity, temperature in the 90s even at night. Every surface covered in vegetation. Every step through undergrowth that fought you. And the noise. God, the noise. Insects, birds, monkeys, frogs, all creating a wall of sound that was both concealing and disorienting. We humped through that jungle for 6 hours, moving in tactical formation, using night vision to navigate terrain that wanted to kill us. Snakes, jaguars, spiders the size of your hand. And beneath all that natural danger, the constant awareness that we were operating illegally in a hostile nation. If we got caught, the US government would disavow us. We'd be labeled mercenaries or criminals. No rescue would come. Chen was on point, using a handheld GPS and terrain mapping to guide us through the densest jungle I'd ever operated in. She'd studied satellite imagery for hours, memorized every geographic feature, every stream, every ridge. Behind her moved Porter and Kim, scanning left and right sectors. I was center, coordinating. Rodriguez covered our 6 with his M240 machine gun, ready to lay down suppressive fire if we got hit. Webb monitored radio frequencies, listening for any indication Venezuelan forces knew we were there. We reached our observation point at 0630 hours, just as dawn was breaking. The compound sat in a valley, carved out of jungle, surrounded by a 10-foot chain-link fence topped with razor wire. 4 guard towers at the corners, each with a 2-man crew armed with rifles and searchlights. The main building was concrete, 2 stories, no windows on the ground floor. Blast-resistant construction. This wasn't a research facility. This was a fortress. Count 9 hostiles on perimeter, Chen whispered, glassing the compound through high-powered optics. Probably another 10 to 15 inside. Venezuelan military uniforms, but equipment is Russian. AK-103 rifles, PKM machine guns in the towers. Professional bearing. These aren't conscripts. These are trained soldiers. Any sign of Harrison? I asked. Negative. All ground floor windows are blocked. If he's in there, he's on the 2nd floor or in a basement level we can't see from here. We spent the next 6 hours conducting detailed reconnaissance, documented guard rotations, mapped entry points, identified defensive positions. The compound had 3 access points, main gate on the north side, vehicle entrance on the east, and a small pedestrian gate on the south side that guards used for perimeter patrols. The south gate was our best option, least visible from the towers, only 2 guards, and it led directly to the main building. But something was bothering me. The security was too tight for a simple holding facility. The guards were too professional, and there was too much activity. Trucks coming and going, personnel moving equipment. This compound was actively operational, not just holding a single prisoner. "Reber, we've got a problem," Webb said quietly, holding his headphones tight. "I'm picking up encrypted radio traffic. Russian protocol. There are Russians on site." That complicated things. Russians meant potential diplomatic incident. Meant we couldn't just breach and grab. We needed positive identification of Harrison, needed to ensure we didn't accidentally kill or capture Russian military advisors who might be present. As if reading my thoughts, Chin pointed to a 2nd-floor window. Movement. Someone just looked out. Can't confirm identity, but wrong build for Venezuelan personnel. Taller. Caucasian features. Could be Harrison, Porter suggested. Or could be a Russian. We need better intel, I decided. Webb, can you hack their communications? Get inside their network. Webb pulled out his tech kit, a collection of signal intercept equipment that officially didn't exist. Give me 20 minutes. If they're using standard military encryption, I can crack it. If it's FSB-level security, we're screwed. While Webb worked, the rest of us continued observation. I was watching the compound through my rifle scope when I noticed something strange. One of the outbuildings, separate from the main structure, had unusual ventilation. Industrial air conditioning units, power cables running underground. Way more infrastructure than a simple storage building would need. "Chen, what's the assessment on that western building?" I asked. She adjusted her optics, studied it for a long moment. Airflow suggests significant power consumption. Climate-controlled interior. And look at the security, separate fence, additional guards, biometric lock on the door. Whatever's in there, it's high value. Research facility? Rodriguez suggested. Maybe they really are doing weapons development? Or intelligence processing, Kim offered. Document analysis, computer servers, that kind of thing. Before we could theorize further, Webb interrupted. I'm in. You're going to want to hear this. He patched the intercepted radio traffic through our shared comms. Venezuelan Spanish, translated by Webb in real time. What we heard made my blood run cold. Specimen is responding to treatment. Dr. Volkov confirms biochemical markers are stable. Subject should be ready for transport to Caracas facility within 48 hours. Increased security around Building 3. The Americans will come for their colonel. When they do, we need to be ready. No survivors. General Reyes wants confirmation that the colonel revealed locations of other CIA assets before we move to final disposition. Continue enhanced interrogation. Harrison was being tortured. And there was something about a specimen, about Dr. Volkov, about biochemical markers. This wasn't just a hostage situation. This was something worse. What the hell is the specimen? Porter asked. No idea, I said. But we're going to find out. Chen, start planning our breach. We go in tonight. Multiple objectives now: extract Harrison, gather intelligence on whatever they're doing in that western building, and get out before this whole thing goes sideways. We spent the rest of the day refining our plan. The operation would kick off at 2,200 hours, late enough that most personnel would be at reduced alertness, early enough that we'd have darkness for most of our exfiltration. The approach would be simple: 2 teams. Chen, Kim, and I would breach the main building, locate Harrison, and extract him. Rodriguez, Porter, and Webb would secure the western building, gather whatever intelligence they could, and provide overwatch for our exfil. At 2,145 hours, we moved into position. The jungle at night was even worse than during the day. Complete darkness under the canopy, navigation by feel and night vision. But we reached the south fence line undetected. Rodriguez set up his machine gun position with clear sight lines to both guard towers. Webb deployed his signal jamming equipment, ready to cut their communications on my order, and the assault team prepared to cut through the fence. All teams, radio check, I whispered. Everyone responded with double clicks. Good to go. Webb, jam on my mark. Rodriguez, towers are your priority. Chen, Kim, on me. We breach hard, move fast, find Harrison, get out. Questions? Silence. We'd done this 1,000 times in training, dozens of times in real operations. Hostage rescue was what we did, what we were built for. Execute in 3, 2, 1, mark. Webb activated the jammer. Every radio in the compound went dead simultaneously. The guards in the towers looked confused, started checking their equipment. That confusion bought us 5 seconds. Rodriguez used those seconds to put suppressed rounds through both tower guards on our side of the compound. They dropped silently, slumping over their machine guns. We cut through the fence, moved through the gap in tactical formation. 30 meters of open ground between us and the building. Longest 30 meters of my life. Expecting gunfire, expecting alarms, expecting everything to go to hell. But we made it. Hit the wall, stacked up on the door. Kim placed a shape charge on the lock. Barely larger than a deck of cards, but containing enough explosive to blow the door clean off its hinges. Breaching, he whispered, and triggered the charge. The explosion was muffled but effective. The door blew inward, and we flowed through the opening. Inside was a corridor, dimly lit by emergency lighting. 2 guards at the far end, just starting to react. Chen dropped both with controlled pairs, 2 rounds each, center mass. They fell without making a sound. Clear front, Chen called. Moving, I confirmed, advancing down the corridor. 3 doors on the left, 2 on the right. All closed. All potentially holding enemies or hostages or God knows what. We cleared them methodically. First door, storage room. Second door, office, empty. Third door, another office with 2 Venezuelan officers who reached for their sidearms. Kim and I engaged simultaneously. They never got their weapons out. Upstairs, I said, pointing to a stairwell at the corridor's end. Harrison should be on the 2nd floor based on that window observation. We moved up the stairs, weapons ready. The 2nd floor was different. Not offices. Cells. 6 doors, each with a small observation slot, each reinforced with steel. Prison cells in a facility that officially didn't exist. I checked the first slot. Empty. Second slot, empty. Third slot, jackpot. A man, sitting on a concrete bunk, face bruised and swollen but recognizable from his file photos. Colonel David Harrison. Harrison. I called through the door. U.S. military. We're here to extract you. He looked up, confusion and hope warring on his battered face. Who sent you? JSOC. Delta. We're getting you out. Stand back from the door. Kim placed another shaped charge. Breaching. The lock blew, and we pulled the door open. Harrison stumbled out, barely able to walk. His left leg was injured, possibly broken. His face showed signs of systematic beating, but he was alive. That was what mattered. Can you move? I asked. I can move, he said, voice rough. But you don't understand. You need to see what they're doing here. Building 3. They have something terrible. We know about Building 3, Chin said. 2nd team is checking it now. No, Harrison insisted. You don't understand. They're not researching weapons. They're creating them. Biological weapons. Something they got from Russian labs. Something that turns people into. The alarms started screaming. Our jammer had been overcome or someone had triggered a hardwired system. Either way, our cover was blown. The compound knew we were here. Exfil now. I ordered. Chen, help Harrison. Kim, rear security. Move, move, move. We hit the stairs running. Behind us, I could hear doors slamming open, voices shouting orders in Spanish. Venezuelan security forces responding to the breach. We had maybe 90 seconds before this entire compound converged on our position. We burst out the door we'd entered through and immediately came under fire. Rounds impacting the wall around us, muzzle flashes from multiple positions. The remaining tower guards had spotted us, were laying down fire with their machine guns. And ground forces were emerging from barracks buildings, at least 20 soldiers forming up for a counter-assault. Rodriguez, cover. I screamed into comms. The blessed sound of Rodriguez's M240 opened up from the tree line. Suppressive fire, long bursts, disciplined and devastating. Tower guards ducked. Ground forces scattered. It bought us the seconds we needed. We sprinted across that open ground, half carrying Harrison between us. Rounds snapping past, too close, way too close. I felt one tug at my sleeve, missing flesh by millimeters. Chin grunted, took a hit to her body armor that knocked her down but didn't penetrate. Kim pulled her up, kept moving. We hit the fence line and threw ourselves through the gap we'd cut. Into the jungle. Into the blessed cover of vegetation and darkness. Status. I called. Chen's hit, armor stopped it, Kim reported. Harrison's with us. I'm good. Porter, Webb, Rodriguez, what's your status? Webb's voice came back tense. We're in Building 3. Reaper, you need to see this. You need to see what they've been doing. Negative, we're extracting now. Whatever it is, it's not worth getting killed over. Reaper, Webb said, his voice shaking. They're experimenting on people. There are bodies here, civilians, and something else, something I don't have words for. This isn't just weapons research. This is crimes against humanity. Behind us, the compound was mobilizing fully. Vehicle engines starting, search flights sweeping the jungle, organized pursuit forming. We had maybe 5 minutes before they'd be on us with numbers we couldn't fight. Can you document it? I asked Webb. Already doing it. Cameras rolling. But there's something alive in here. In a containment cell. They've created something, Reaper. Something that shouldn't exist. And that's when we heard it. A sound that didn't belong in any jungle. A roar that wasn't animal and wasn't human. Something in between. Something wrong. The roar came again, louder this time, echoing across the compound and into the jungle. It wasn't just loud, it resonated at a frequency that made my teeth ache, that made my skin crawl with primal fear. Every animal in the jungle went silent. Complete, absolute silence. Even the insects stopped. Nature itself was holding its breath. Webb, get out of that building, I ordered. Now. Whatever that thing is, leave it. Too late. Webb's voice came back, strain evident. It's out. The containment cell is open. I think our explosives triggered the electronic locks. Reaper, it's coming toward us and it's fast. Rodriguez, Porter, support Webb's position. We're 2 minutes out. Negative, Rodriguez said. You need to keep moving with Harrison. Venezuelan forces are forming a pursuit team. 30+ soldiers, moving into the jungle on your vector. If you stop to help us, they'll trap you. He was right. Command decisions in the field are always brutal. Abandon your teammates or risk the entire mission. But I hadn't left anyone behind in 15 years of operations, and I wasn't starting now. Chen, Kim, get Harrison to emergency rally point Alpha, I said, making the call. I'm going back for the team. Sir, that's... Chin started to protest. That's an order, Captain. Harrison is the primary objective. Get him across the Colombian border. I'll handle Building 3 and catch up with the secondary team. Chin looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. She understood. Understood that some calls you make knowing you might not come back from them. Don't be a hero, Reaper. Get your ass to that border. They melted into the jungle, half carrying Harrison between them. I turned and headed back toward the compound at a dead run, using night vision to navigate through vegetation that grabbed at my gear, that tried to slow me down. Behind me, I could hear the Venezuelan pursuit team crashing through the jungle, undisciplined and loud but numerous. Ahead, I could hear gunfire. Rodriguez's M240, the distinctive crack of AK-103s, and underneath it all, that roar. I burst out of the tree line near Building 3 and immediately assessed the tactical situation. It was bad. Rodriguez had set up a defensive position behind a concrete barrier, his machine gun laying down suppressive fire on a dozen Venezuelan soldiers who'd emerged from the main building. Porter was beside him, firing controlled bursts with his M4. Webb was at the door to Building 3, filming something inside with a handheld camera, his rifle slung. And between the Venezuelan soldiers and my team, there was something else. At first, my brain couldn't process what I was seeing. It was roughly humanoid. 2 arms, 2 legs, upright posture. But wrong. Fundamentally wrong. Its skin was gray-green, mottled like a corpse. Its proportions were distorted, arms too long, ending in hands with fingers that had too many joints. Its face was the worst part. Human features stretched and twisted, jaw extended, filled with teeth that were too sharp and too numerous. And its eyes. God, its eyes were human. Terrified, unaware, and trapped inside this nightmare body. It moved with unnatural speed, covering ground in long, loping strides. A Venezuelan soldier fired at it, rounds hitting center mass, and the thing barely slowed. It reached the soldier, grabbed him with those 2 long arms, and tore him apart. Literally tore him apart. The soldier's screams cut off in a wet gurgle as the creature ripped through body armor like tissue paper. "Contact creature," Rodriguez shouted, swinging his machine gun toward it. He opened fire, 7.62 millimeters rounds chewing into the thing's torso. It staggered, roared that bone-shaking roar, but kept moving, kept killing. It grabbed another Venezuelan soldier, bit down on his neck, and I saw the soldier convulse. Not dying from blood loss. Convulsing like he'd been injected with something. The creature's saliva, maybe. Some kind of venom or pathogen. I raised my M4 and fired. Aimed for the head, the only target that might work on something that shrugged off body shots. My first burst missed as the creature moved. My second burst hit, rounds impacting the skull, and the creature went down. Stayed down. Whatever it was, headshots still worked. "Webb, please tell me you got that on camera," I said, reaching my team's position. Every second of it, Webb confirmed, his face pale. "Reaper, there's more inside. At least 3 more containment cells. And documentation. Lab notes. Testing logs. They've been doing this for months. Taking local villagers, prisoners, political dissidents. Experimenting on them with some kind of Russian bioweapon. Trying to create super soldiers. Most of them died. The ones that survived turned into that. The Venezuelan soldiers were regrouping, using the creature attack as cover to flank our position. More were emerging from the barracks. We were outnumbered 20-1 and stuck in a compound we couldn't escape from without fighting through a reinforced perimeter. "We need to destroy this facility," Porter said. "Can't let this research fall into anyone else's hands. Not the Venezuelans, not the Russians, not even our own people. This shit needs to be erased from existence." "Agreed," I said. "Webb, how much C4 do we have left?" 4 pounds. Enough to level Building 3, but not the whole compound. Building 3 is what matters. Set charges, 5-minute timer. Rodriguez, Porter, hold this position. I'm going to get us a vehicle. We forded the river, waist deep, current strong, leeches immediately attaching to any exposed skin, and pushed into the jungle on the far side. The terrain was getting worse. Steeper. More mountains, less flat ground. And we were exhausted. Running on adrenaline and fear, but that only lasts so long before your body starts to shut down. 2 hours later, just as dawn was breaking, we reached Rally Point Alpha, a small clearing on the Venezuelan side of the border, identified during mission planning as our emergency extraction location. Chen, Kim, and Harrison were already there, set up in a defensive perimeter. "Report," I said, collapsing next to them. "Harrison stable," Chen said. "Broken ribs, possible concussion, dehydrated, but he'll make it. No pursuit on our vector. They must be concentrating forces on your location." "They will be soon," Rodriguez said. "Once they process the scene at the compound, once they realize we escaped in a vehicle and track us this far, they'll flood this area with troops." Harrison spoke up, his voice weak but determined. "You saw it then. The specimen. What they created." "We saw it," I confirmed. "We killed one. There were more, but they died in the explosion when we destroyed Building 3. "Not all of them," Harrison said grimly. "They had an off-site facility, 50 kilometers north of the compound. That's where they keep the successful specimens. The ones that are stable. The ones that follow orders. Reaper, they've created a bioweapon that can think, that can operate independently, that's stronger and faster than any human soldier. And there are at least a dozen of them at that other facility." "That's above our pay grade now," I said. "We extract, we report, we let the intelligence community figure out what to do with that information." "They won't do anything," Harrison said bitterly. "I've been reporting on this program for 3 months, sending detailed intelligence back to Langley. Nothing happened. No response. No follow-up. Either they didn't believe me, or they didn't care, or Or they already knew, Webb finished quietly, and they wanted Venezuela to continue the research, to see if it worked, to let someone else take the risks and the international condemnation while US intelligence gathered data. The cynical part of me knew he was probably right. The US had a long history of watching hostile nations develop weapons, monitoring their progress, letting them solve the technical problems, then either stealing the research or destroying it depending on how successful it was. We'd done it with Soviet nuclear programs, with Chinese cyber capabilities, with Iranian drone development. Why not with Venezuelan bioweapons? Doesn't matter, I said. Our mission was to extract Harrison. We did that. Everything else is bonus intelligence. Webb's footage, Harrison's testimony, our first-hand observations. We take it all back, dump it on the desk of whoever's running this operation, and let them handle it. And when they bury it? Webb challenged. When they classify it above top secret and ensure no one ever hears about it? Then we've done our job, I said firmly. We're soldiers. We follow orders. We complete missions. We don't make policy. Webb looked like he wanted to argue, but Porter cut him off. Movement. South, about 200 meters. Multiple contacts. We all went silent, weapons up, scanning the jungle. Porter was right. Through the vegetation, I could see figures moving. At least 10, maybe more. Tactical spacing. Professional movement. Not Venezuelan army regulars. Those are Russian, Chun whispered, viewing them through her optics. Spetsnaz by their gear. And they're headed right for us. We had maybe 2 minutes before they reached our position. 7 operators, 1 injured colonel, against an unknown number of Russian special forces in terrain that gave them every advantage. We couldn't fight, couldn't win. Our only option was to run. Colombian border is 300 meters west, I said quietly. Once we cross, we're technically on friendly soil. The Russians won't follow, too much risk of international incident. But we have to make it there without getting caught or killed. Harrison can't run, Kim pointed out. Not with his injuries. Then we carry him, Rodriguez said. 2-man firemen's carry, rotating every 50 meters. Fast movement, no stopping. We didn't have time to debate tactics. The Russians were closing. I could hear them now, communicating in low voices, coordinating their search. Professional. Dangerous. Men who'd kill us without hesitation and make our bodies disappear. Move, I whispered. Now. We moved. Rodriguez and Porter carried Harrison between them, his arms over their shoulders, feet barely touching ground. The rest of us provided security, weapons up, scanning for threats. We crashed through jungle, abandoning stealth for speed. 300 meters. Longest 300 meters of my life. Behind us, shouts in Russian. They'd found our position. Seen our tracks. The pursuit was on. 200 meters. I could see lighter vegetation ahead, suggesting the border clearing. 50 more meters and we'd be across. 50 more meters to safety. The first round snapped past us. Suppressed weapons, professional fire discipline. The Russians weren't trying to kill us yet. They wanted us alive, wanted to interrogate us, wanted to know what we'd found at the compound. But if we made it to the border, that calculation would change. They'd take shots they couldn't explain, create an incident they couldn't deny, rather than let us escape with what we knew. 100 meters. Porter grunted, took a hit to his body armor. Stayed on his feet, kept moving. Rodriguez stumbled, went down, but Kim grabbed Harrison and kept moving. Porter provided covering fire, emptying his magazine in controlled bursts toward the pursuing Russians. 50 meters. The border clearing was visible now. And on the Colombian side, I could see figures. American figures. Our extraction team, waiting with vehicles, providing overwatch. We were going to make it. 25 meters. The Russian fire intensified. They knew they were losing us. Rounds impacted trees around us, kicking up dirt, some coming way too close. Chen screamed, went down, hid in the leg. Webb grabbed her, pulled her up, half-carried her forward. We burst across the border into Colombian territory. Into safety. The extraction team immediately laid down suppressive fire, pinning the Russians on the Venezuelan side. Professional courtesy, they wouldn't cross the border to pursue, and we wouldn't fire into Venezuelan territory unless fired upon first. We loaded into waiting vehicles, armored SUVs with U.S. diplomatic plates, and pulled away from the border at high speed. Behind us, the Russian team watched from the tree line but didn't pursue. They'd failed their mission. We'd completed ours. Harrison was unconscious now, shock and exhaustion catching up with him. Chen's leg wound was bleeding but not arterial. Porter's armor had stopped the round completely. Rodriguez had twisted his ankle but could walk. Kim and Webb were uninjured. I had a dozen minor cuts and bruises, leech bites, and exhaustion so profound I could barely keep my eyes open. But we'd done it. Extracted the hostage. Gathered critical intelligence. Survived against impossible odds. Where are we going? I asked the driver, a CIA contractor by his look. U.S. Embassy in Bogota, he said. You'll be debriefed, cleaned up, and put on a transport back to the States within 24 hours. This mission never happened. You were never in Venezuela. Understood. Understood, I confirmed. Standard operating procedure for black operations. But as I closed my eyes, as adrenaline finally gave way to exhaustion, I couldn't stop thinking about what we'd seen. The creature in the compound. The experiments. The human eyes in that nightmare face, aware and suffering. Someone had done that. Someone had taken human beings and turned them into weapons. And somewhere in Venezuela, there were more of them. A dozen more, Harrison had said. Stable. Trained. Following orders. The world had no idea what was coming. The U.S. Embassy in Bogota was a fortress disguised as a modern office building. 15-foot walls, armed Colombian security, and enough electronic surveillance to make the NSA jealous. They hustled us through a back entrance, past diplomatic staff who were trained not to see what they weren't supposed to see, and into a secure facility 3 levels underground. The debriefing started immediately. No sleep, no showers, no time to process what we'd experienced. Just a windowless room, uncomfortable chairs, and 3 men in suits who didn't offer names or agency affiliations. They wanted every detail, every observation, every piece of intelligence we'd gathered. We told them everything. The compound, the security, Harrison's condition, the Russians on site, Building 3, the experiments, the creatures, and we showed them Webb's footage. They watched in silence. 40 minutes of high-definition video documenting crimes against humanity. Bodies stacked in refrigerated storage. Lab notes detailing test subjects by number rather than name. And the creatures themselves, captured on camera before we'd destroyed the facility. The lead interrogator, I'll call him Mr. Smith because he looked like every generic federal agent ever, watched without expression. When the footage ended, he turned to us with cold, bureaucratic eyes. This footage is now classified above top secret, he said. Special access program, need to know basis only. You will not discuss it. You will not reference it. You will sign non-disclosure agreements with criminal penalties for violation that include life imprisonment without parole. Am I clear? Crystal clear, I said. But I have a question. How long have we known about this program? Mr. Smith didn't answer immediately. Exchanged glances with his 2 colleagues. When he spoke, his tone was carefully neutral. The intelligence community has been aware of Venezuelan-Russian cooperation on advanced military research for approximately 18 months. The specific nature of that research has been unclear. Unclear, I repeated. You're saying you didn't know they were experimenting on human subjects? creating biological weapons that violate every international treaty. I'm saying intelligence is often incomplete. We gather pieces of information and attempt to form coherent pictures. Sometimes those pictures are accurate, sometimes they're not. That's bullshit, Webb said flatly. Harrison was reporting on this for 3 months. He sent detailed intelligence, chemical formulas, test results, photographs, everything the CIA needed to understand exactly what was happening. And nothing was done. No response, no intervention, no attempt to stop it. Mr. Smith's expression didn't change. Agent Harrison's intelligence was received and processed according to standard protocols. The decision was made that continued observation was more valuable than immediate intervention. You let them continue, Webb said, his voice rising. You let them torture and experiment on innocent people because you wanted to see if the program would work. You wanted the data. That's enough, Sergeant, Mr. Smith said coldly. You're making assumptions about classified decision-making processes you're not clear to understand. I suggest you focus on what you witnessed, not on policy decisions above your pay grade. But Webb was right, and everyone in that room knew it. The CIA had known, had watched, had let it continue, gathering intelligence on a biological weapons program without intervening to stop it. And when Harrison had been captured, when his cover was burned, they'd sent us in not just to extract him but to assess the program's progress. We'd been intelligence-gathering assets, not rescue operators. What about the other facility? Harrison spoke up, his voice still rough from his ordeal. The 150 kilometers north where they keep the stable specimens. Are you going to do something about that? That facility will be addressed through appropriate channels, Mr. Smith said. Which meant they do nothing. Would keep watching. Would let the program continue until Venezuela and Russia perfected their bioweapons or abandoned the research. The debriefing continued for 6 more hours. Every detail documented, every observation recorded, every piece of intelligence cataloged and classified. By the time they let us leave that room, it was early evening. We were given quarters in the embassy, small rooms with military cots, no windows, doors that locked from the outside. Not quite prisoners, but not quite free. I found Webb in the common area, staring at his hands, clearly wrestling with something. You're thinking about leaking the footage, I said, sitting down across from him. He looked up, startled. How did you? Because I'm thinking about it too. What we saw, what they did to those people, the world should know. But if we leak it, our lives are over. Criminal charges, treason, life in prison. And that's if we're lucky. More likely we have an accident, a suicide, a random mugging gone wrong. So we just accept it? Webb asked. We let them bury this? Let them continue the program? I don't know, I admitted. Part of me says we're soldiers. We follow orders. We complete missions and let someone else handle the political fallout. But another part of me saw those eyes. The human eyes in that creature's face. Someone aware and suffering and trapped. That person deserved better than to be a weapons development statistic. We sat in silence for a long moment. Then Webb pulled something from his pocket. A thumb drive, small and innocuous. I made a backup. Before I turned over the camera to the debrief team. Everything's on here. The experiments. The creatures. The documentation. Proof of what they did. Webb, I'm not saying I'll use it, he interrupted. But I'm not saying I won't. I need time to think. To figure out if exposing this is worth destroying my life. Our lives. Because if I leak it, they'll know it came from our team. They'll come after all of us. He was right. Whistleblowing on black operations didn't make you a hero. It made you a target. Chelsea Manning, Edward Snowden, countless others who'd exposed classified information with good intentions had paid heavy prices. Prison, exile, destroyed reputations. And that was when they went public with evidence of wrongdoing. This was different. This was operational intelligence from an active covert program. This would be considered treason, not whistleblowing. Whatever you decide, I said finally, I've got your back. We all do. That's what being on a team means. Webb nodded, pocketed the thumb drive. I appreciate that, Reaper. I really do. The next morning, they flew us back to the United States. Military transport, no passenger manifest, landing at an Air Force base that officially had no record of our arrival. We were separated immediately. Different vehicles, different debriefings, different handlers, making sure our stories stayed consistent, that no one had developed inconvenient second thoughts about classification agreements. I didn't see Webb again for 3 months. When I finally tracked him down, he was at Fort Bragg, assigned to an administrative position pushing papers. Career effectively over. Delta Force operators don't do desk jobs unless someone wants them sidelined. They buried me, he told me over beers at an off-base bar. Decided I was a security risk. Too idealistic. Too likely to make noise about things I shouldn't. So they gave me a nothing job and made it clear my career progression stops here. What about the footage? I asked. He pulled out the thumb drive, set it on the table between us. Still have it. Still thinking about what to do with it. But every day I don't release it, more people suffer. That facility in Venezuela is still operational. Still creating those things. And our government is still watching, still gathering data, still doing nothing. You want my advice? I said. Always. Don't leak it. Not to journalists, not to whistleblower organizations, not to anyone. Because the moment you do, your life is over. And probably mine too, and Chen's, and everyone else on that mission. But more importantly, it won't change anything. They'll deny it. Call it fake. Deepfake videos, AI-generated propaganda, whatever excuse they need. The people who need to be held accountable never will be. Webb looked at the thumb drive for a long moment. Then he pocketed it, nodded slowly. You're probably right. Probably. But I can't just let it go. Can't pretend I didn't see what I saw. So don't pretend. Remember it. Let it drive you to be better, to make better decisions, to fight harder for the people who can't fight for themselves. That's how you honor those victims. Not by destroying your life in a gesture that accomplishes nothing. We finished our beers. Talked about other things. Sports, family, the usual bullshit that soldiers used to avoid talking about what really matters. When we parted ways, I hoped Webb would listen. Would let it go. Would accept that some fights can't be won. I was wrong. 3 weeks later, the footage appeared online. Posted anonymously to a dozen different platforms simultaneously, along with documentation, lab notes, location data, everything Webb had gathered. It went viral immediately. Millions of views within hours. International news coverage. Demands for investigations. Venezuela and Russia issuing furious denials. The U.S. State Department calling it unverified propaganda and enemy disinformation. Webb disappeared that same day. No arrest, no public charges, just gone. His apartment cleaned out, his vehicle found abandoned near the Canadian border, no trace of where he'd gone or what had happened to him. The official line was that he'd deserted, gone AWOL, was being sought by military authorities for unauthorized disclosure of classified information. But those of us who knew Webb understood the truth. He hadn't disappeared. He'd been disappeared. The intelligence community had decided he was too dangerous to prosecute publicly. A trial would mean more disclosure, more attention, more questions. So they'd handled it quietly. Permanently. Webb was dead, or in a black site somewhere, or living under a new identity and witness protection if he was very lucky. The leaked footage did exactly what I'd predicted. Generated noise for a few weeks, then faded from the news cycle. New scandals, new crises, new distractions. The Venezuelan facility was allegedly shut down, though satellite imagery suggested otherwise. The Russian advisors were allegedly recalled, though intelligence indicated they'd just moved to a different location. And the bioweapons program allegedly terminated, though anyone with clearance knew it had simply gone deeper underground. Nothing changed. Nothing ever does. Colonel Harrison recovered from his physical injuries but never returned to active duty. Took early retirement, moved to Montana, refused all interviews. I saw him once at a Special Forces reunion. He looked older than his years, haunted by memories he couldn't share with anyone who'd believe them. Chen transferred to intelligence analysis, using her experience to help other operators avoid the mistakes we'd made. Rodriguez and Porter stayed with Delta, continued running missions, never spoke about Venezuela. Kim left the military entirely, became a contractor, made good money doing the same work for private companies that didn't have congressional oversight. And me? I did 3 more years in Delta before an injury gave me a medical retirement I didn't ask for but secretly welcomed. Got out while I still had most of my sanity, most of my soul. Try to build a normal life. Wife, kids, suburban house, the whole American dream. But I never forgot Venezuela. Never forgot those creatures with human eyes. Never forgot that somewhere in the world, in facilities we'll never find, researchers are still conducting experiments that violate every ethical boundary. Still creating weapons that shouldn't exist. Still sacrificing innocent lives in the name of military advancement. It's been 4 years since that mission. 4 years of official denials and classified cover-ups. 4 years of telling myself I did the right thing by not supporting Webb's decision to leak the footage. 4 years of wondering if I'm a coward or a realist. Last month, I got a package in the mail. No return address, no note. Just a thumb drive. I knew what it was before I even plugged it in. Webb's backup footage. The original recordings, unedited, with metadata that would prove their authenticity to any forensic analysis. And a text file with a single sentence, "Your turn to decide." I don't know if Webb is alive or dead. Don't know if he sent this or if someone else did. But I have the evidence now. Have the proof of what happened in that Venezuelan facility. Have the power to expose it, to force accountability, to ensure those victims aren't forgotten. I also have a wife and 2 daughters. Have a life I've built, a future I want to see. Have too much to lose by becoming the next whistleblower martyr. So the thumb drive sits in my safe, waiting. A loaded gun that could destroy my life or redeem it, depending on your perspective. Every day I tell myself I'll decide tomorrow. Every tomorrow I tell myself the same thing. Maybe that makes me complicit. Maybe it makes me smart. Maybe it just makes me human. What I know for certain is this: the bioweapons program in Venezuela wasn't unique. There are others. Dozens of them, in countries we're allied with, in countries we're opposed to. Russia, China, North Korea, Israel, Saudi Arabia. Probably even the United States, though officially we'd never admit it. Everyone is racing to develop the next generation of weapons. Biological, chemical, genetic, cybernetic. Anything that gives a military advantage. And the cost is always paid by people who never chose to be test subjects. Prisoners, dissidents, the poor and desperate who volunteer for medical studies without understanding what they're volunteering for. People who trust their governments to protect them, never realizing their governments see them as expendable resources. Those creatures we encountered in Venezuela? They're just the beginning. The prototype, the proof of concept. By now, the program has advanced, refined, improved. The next generation will be faster, stronger, more controllable. And eventually, someone will deploy them. Use them in combat. Show the world what humans can become when we abandon ethics in pursuit of military superiority. When that day comes, and it will come, people will be shocked. We'll demand investigations, accountability, justice. They'll ask how this could happen, why no one stopped it, who's responsible. And I'll know. I was there. I saw it beginning. I had evidence that could have stopped it, or at least slowed it down, or at minimum ensured the world knew the truth. And I did nothing. Maybe someday I'll have the courage Webb had. Maybe someday I'll release that footage, accept the consequences, become the whistleblower hero or traitor, depending on who's writing the story. Maybe someday I'll believe that exposing the truth is worth destroying my life. But not today. Today I have breakfast with my daughters. Today I take my wife to dinner. Today I pretend the thumb drive in my safe doesn't exist. Today I'm just another veteran with classified memories and complicated ethics. Tomorrow? Tomorrow I'll decide. The same thing I told myself yesterday. If you're reading this, and if you are, it means something happened to me, means someone found this account and decided to publish it, then you know the truth. You know what governments are capable of when they prioritize military advantage over human rights. You know that bioweapons programs exist, that they're creating things that shouldn't exist, that people are suffering in facilities that officially don't exist. What you do with that knowledge is your decision. Same decision I've been making every day for 4 years. Same decision Webb made when he leaked that footage. Same decision countless whistleblowers and covert operators make when they encounter classified atrocities. Expose it and destroy your life, or stay silent and preserve it. There's no good option. No right answer. Just the weight of knowledge you can't share and consequences you can't escape. I'm writing this testimony not as a confession or a justification, but as a warning. The Venezuela facility wasn't an isolated incident. It was a symptom of a larger disease. A military-industrial complex that has abandoned ethical constraints in pursuit of technological superiority. A global arms race in biological weapons that will eventually produce something we can't control. Those creatures in Venezuela could be killed with headshots, could be destroyed with conventional weapons. The next generation might not be so vulnerable. Might be designed to survive anything we throw at them. Might be autonomous, self-replicating, impossible to contain once deployed. And when that happens, when some nation decides to use them in combat, when the bioweapons genie escapes its bottle, we'll all pay the price for decisions made in classified facilities by people whose names we'll never know. I saw the future in that Venezuelan compound. Saw what we're capable of doing to each other when ethics become negotiable. Saw human beings transformed into weapons, their humanity stripped away in service of military objectives. Saw the eyes of someone aware and suffering and abandoned by the very institutions that should have protected them. That future is coming. Maybe not this year or next year, but soon. And when it arrives, when the bioweapons are deployed and the casualties mount and the horror becomes undeniable, remember that we had chances to stop it. Webb tried. He paid the price. Others will try. They'll pay too. The question is whether their sacrifice will matter. Whether exposure and accountability can still change things, or whether we've passed the point of no return. Whether humanity can step back from this precipice or whether we're committed to falling. I don't have the answer. I'm just a soldier who followed orders, completed missions, and tried to do the right thing within a system that doesn't always reward righteousness. I have evidence of war crimes. I have proof of atrocities. I have the power to expose truth and the fear of consequences that stops me. Maybe tomorrow I'll be braver. Maybe tomorrow I'll release the footage, accept my fate, become whatever history decides I am. Maybe tomorrow I'll finally honor Webb's sacrifice by finishing what he started. But probably not. Probably tomorrow will be like today. Another day of silence. Another day of complicity. Another day of telling myself that one person can't change systems this entrenched, this powerful, this indifferent to individual conscience. And maybe that's true. Maybe it's realistic. Maybe it's the survival instinct that kept me alive through 15 years of combat operations. Or maybe it's just cowardice with better justification. The thumb drive is in my safe. Webb's final gift. Your move, he said. For years later, I still haven't made it. But I'm writing this, documenting what happened, creating a record that can't be entirely buried. And maybe that's worth something. Maybe testimony matters even when justice doesn't follow. Maybe bearing witness is its own form of resistance. Or maybe I'm just making excuses for inaction. You decide. Same choice we all face when confronted with classified evil. Same impossible calculation between personal preservation and moral duty. Same weight that's crushed better people than me. Venezuela, August 2019. Operation Ghost Cage. The mission that never happened. The atrocities no one will acknowledge. The truth that's too dangerous to tell. Except I'm telling it now. In this testimony. In this confession. In this warning. The bioweapons are real. The programs continue. The next generation is coming. And we're all running out of time to decide what we're willing to sacrifice to stop it.